So, a man sits across from his girlfriend at dinner. The night should feel romantic, but something is off. She scrolls through her phone, her answers are short, her laughter forced. He cracks a joke she used to love, but now it barely earns a smile. So he tries harder, offering compliments, planning a surprise trip, reminding her of how much he cares. The more effort he pours in, the more distant she seems. This is where so many men get trapped. They believe regaining a woman's interest is about doing more, proving more, giving more. But the harder they chase, the further she drifts. And here's what most men don't realize. She didn't lose interest because he forgot a date or didn't text fast enough. She lost interest because he stopped being the man she respected, the man she admired, the man who didn't need her attention to feel secure. The begging, the convincing, the endless explanations, those are signs of weakness. To a woman, weakness isn't something she can nurture back into attraction. Weakness kills attraction. And if you've ever sat wondering, why doesn't she look at me the same way anymore? Then you've already stepped into the trap of seeking her validation instead of holding your ground. Women don't test men with words. They test men with their actions, with their distance, with their silence. And when you react by chasing, you fail that test. When you respond with composure and independence, you pass it. That's the shift she notices. That's what pulls her back in. This video isn't about tricks or fake confidence. It's about 3 simple steps that put you back in control. Steps that make her second guess why she drifted away, and steps that naturally reignite her interest without a single ounce of begging. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how to stop chasing and start leading again. Let's get into it. 1. Stop rewarding her distance. When a woman begins to pull away, most men respond by doing the exact opposite of what keeps attraction alive. They sense her becoming cold, so they compensate with more effort. More texts, more compliments, more checking in. But here's the problem when she's creating distance, and you reward that behavior with more attention. You confirm to her that she can withdraw and still get everything from you. That dynamic doesn't reignite attraction. It kills it. Think about it like this. Attraction works on a balance of value and mystery. When she starts giving you less, and you give her more in return, you tip the balance against yourself. You show her that your attention isn't earned, it's automatic. And what's automatic loses value. Now, let's put this into perspective with something you've probably seen on screen. In the movie Swingers, there's a scene where the main character, Mike, keeps calling a woman he just met not once, but over and over again, leaving a string of desperate voicemails. Instead of making her interested, it makes him look needy and weak. The more he chases, the more embarrassing it becomes. That's exactly what happens when you reward a woman's distance with more pursuit. It doesn't create desire, it creates resistance. So what should you do instead? You match her energy, and then some. If she starts to pull back, you don't double down. You slow down. You protect your time, your attention, and your energy. You stop overinvesting where she underinvests. That sends a completely different message. Your presence is valuable, and if she wants more of it, she needs to lean in again. This doesn't mean you play games. It means you recognize that attention is currency, and when she spends less, you don't spend more. You save it for yourself, for your purpose, for people who genuinely reciprocate. That shift forces her to reassess. It makes her realize your world doesn't revolve around her moods or distance. When you stop rewarding her withdrawal, you turn the tables. You remind her that your attention is not a given, it's earned. And once she feels that gap, once she realizes she can't just disappear and still keep your devotion, her interest has no choice but to come back stronger. 2. Pull back more than she does. When a woman begins to pull back, most men panic. They feel her energy slipping away, and their instinct is to hold tighter. They text more, they call more, they try to close the gap. But here's the truth. Closing the gap is the exact thing that makes her keep pulling further away. It's like tug of war. The harder you pull, the more resistance you create. The principle here is simple. If she pulls back 2 steps, you pull back 3. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, out of self-respect. Because every relationship is an exchange of energy. And if she's giving less, you don't make up the difference for her. You let the imbalance stand so she can feel it. And when she feels it, she has a choice: lean back in or lose you. Think about how most men operate. She takes longer to reply, so they reply instantly to prove they're attentive. She stops showing interest in plans, so they keep offering more and more ideas to keep her engaged. She starts to act distant, and they move closer in an attempt to reconnect. That pattern communicates one thing: no matter how little you give, I'll keep giving more. And that kills desire because it removes any sense of risk for her. Women respect men who protect their value. And protecting your value means never overcompensating for her distance. If she slows down, you slow down faster. If she invests less, you invest less. That doesn't mean playing cold or becoming hostile. It means showing, through your actions, that you won't chase someone who is moving away. This is where most men struggle because they confuse pulling back with losing her. But the reality is, pulling back is the only thing that forces her to notice the space. It makes her realize you're not hanging on every word or waiting by the phone. It proves that you have options, a life, and standards. When you pull back more than she does, two things happen. 1. She feels the natural loss of your attention, and that triggers curiosity. 2. You regain your composure and stop bleeding energy into someone who isn't giving it back. This shift resets the dynamic. Instead of her thinking she can withdraw without consequence, she learns that distance comes at a cost. And if she values you even a little, that cost will be too high for her to ignore. So the rule is clear: never chase her retreat. Let her feel what it's like when you're not rushing to fill the gaps she creates. That silence, that absence, that shift in energy, that's what makes her wonder why you stopped giving. And that's the exact moment her interest begins to return. 3. Silence speaks louder than begging. When a woman begins to lose interest, many men believe the only way to win her back is with more words. They think if they can explain how much they care, convince her of their value, or plead for another chance, she'll suddenly wake up and remember why she fell for them. But every extra word spoken in desperation has the opposite effect. It pushes her further away, not closer. Silence is powerful because it forces her to feel the weight of your absence. Begging fills the air with noise she doesn't want to hear, but silence leaves a space she can't ignore. When you stop trying to convince her, you allow her to face her own thoughts. And in that quiet, she begins to wonder where you've gone, why you're no longer reaching out, why the man who used to chase her has gone still. Think of a moment when you argued with someone and kept pushing your side of the story. The more you talked, the more they shut down, because they weren't listening anymore. But when you stopped talking and let the silence hang, they eventually came back to fill it. The same principle works in relationships. Constant words lose their effect, but silence lingers in her mind long after the moment has passed. Imagine two men in the same situation. One is texting paragraphs, begging for another chance, promising to do better. The other man simply steps back and lets the silence carry his message. The first man looks powerless. The second looks composed. And women feel that difference instantly. Silence communicates strength. It tells her you're not desperate, that you're not clinging, that you have the ability to walk away if you're not respected. It also gives you space to breathe, to stop reacting to every shift in her mood. Instead of chasing her, you let her energy come toward you naturally. When you master silence, you shift the power dynamic without aggression. You're not punishing her, you're not playing games, you're simply showing that you don't beg for attention. You give her the chance to notice your absence, to miss what you brought into her life, and to wonder if she took it for granted. Begging kills respect, because it says, I need you more than you need me. Silence restores respect because it says, I don't chase what doesn't value me. That contrast is what makes her stop, think, and in many cases, come back with a different attitude. 4. Rebuild your value without her. One of the most important shifts you can make when a woman loses interest is turning the focus back onto yourself. Most men do the exact opposite. They obsess over her, checking her social media, replaying old conversations in their heads, and trying to figure out what went wrong. That constant focus on her only weakens your position further, because it shows you've placed your entire sense of value in her hands. The moment you do that, she stops seeing you as the man she was drawn to in the first place. Rebuilding your value means remembering who you were before her attention mattered so much. It's about putting energy into your goals, your body, your social life, and your purpose. When you start pouring your time into things that actually improve you, two things happen. You stop depending on her validation, and you naturally become more attractive without even trying. A man who is progressing in life is a man women notice, even when he isn't looking for their attention. Think about how you felt the last time you were really focused on yourself. Maybe it was when you were crushing it at work, or when you were consistent in the gym, or when you were hanging out with friends and genuinely enjoying life. You weren't thinking about impressing anyone, but people noticed the energy you gave off. That's the version of you that has power. That's the version she once respected. When you rebuild your value without her, you change the balance. Instead of chasing her to feel wanted, you create a life so solid that she has to rethink her place in it. Women are drawn to men who don't crumble when things get rocky, but instead use that time to grow stronger. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about proving through your actions that you'll keep moving forward no matter what. The beauty of this approach is that it takes all the pressure off her. You're no longer sitting around waiting for her approval. You're not timing your texts or analyzing her every move. You're living. And in that space, you begin to naturally rebuild the attraction she once felt, because she sees a man who is valuable with or without her. If she comes back, it's because she recognizes that strength again. And if she doesn't, you've still won, because you've elevated yourself instead of breaking yourself down for someone who wasn't showing up for you. Either way, you stand taller, you move with more confidence, and you regain the respect that begging and chasing could never give you. 5. Let her feel the risk of losing you. One of the biggest mistakes men make when a woman starts pulling away is removing all sense of risk from the relationship. They become too available, too forgiving, too predictable. She cancels plans, and he says, "That's okay, whenever you're free." She stops putting in effort, and he responds by putting in double. What he doesn't realize is that by removing risk, he removes respect. A woman only values what she feels she could actually lose. When she believes you'll always be there no matter how she acts, her interest begins to fade. There's no urgency, no spark, no reason for her to invest. But when you let her feel the possibility of losing you, everything changes. Suddenly she has to consider the weight of her choices. She has to recognize that your presence isn't guaranteed. And that shift reignites a very primal instinct in her, the desire to hold on to something valuable before it slips away. Think about the movie Titanic. The entire love story between Jack and Rose is driven by urgency. Every moment they share is heightened by the possibility that it could be their last. That looming risk makes their connection electric and unforgettable. Now, your relationship may not be as dramatic as a sinking ship, but the same principle applies. When a woman feels there's no chance of losing you, she takes you for granted. When she feels your presence isn't permanent, she appreciates you more deeply. This doesn't mean you threaten her or play childish games. It means you live in a way that makes it clear you're not chained to her approval. If she starts to drift, you don't fight to keep her still. You continue moving, building, growing, and letting her see that you won't pause your life waiting for her to decide how she feels. That quiet confidence is what creates the risk. She begins to realize she could lose a man who knows his worth. Every man has been in a situation where he gave everything without conditions, and the woman slowly stopped valuing it. The lesson is simple. Unconditional availability kills attraction. The opposite, measured distance, self-respect, independence, creates the conditions for her to reevaluate. She starts asking herself questions. Is he slipping away? Who else might see his value? Did I misjudge what I had? Those questions fuel curiosity, and curiosity pulls her interest back. Letting her feel the risk of losing you is not about punishment. It's about reminding her that your presence has weight, that you are not replaceable, not desperate, and not waiting around. When she feels that risk, her interest has room to grow again, because people always value what they're afraid of losing. 6. Set boundaries she can't ignore. When a woman begins to pull away, many men react by lowering their standards. They tolerate behavior they never would have accepted in the beginning. They allow cancelled plans without consequence, disrespectful tones without a response, and emotional games that drain them. The more they let things slide, the more she realizes she can push limits without losing him. What starts as a small test quickly becomes a pattern, and before long, she stops respecting him altogether. Setting boundaries is not about controlling her or telling her what she can and cannot do. It's about controlling yourself and deciding what you will and will not accept. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define your value. Without them, you show her that your time, your energy, and your presence can be treated carelessly. With them, you show her that being with you comes with standards, and that only those who respect those standards get to stay close. Think about how many times you've stayed silent when something bothered you, hoping she'd just figure it out on her own. That silence doesn't make things better. It tells her she can keep repeating the same behavior without consequence. On the other hand, when you calmly and clearly show that certain actions won't fly with you, she has no choice but to take notice. Women are naturally drawn to men who know their worth, and nothing communicates worth more clearly than a boundary. The key is consistency. If you say you won't tolerate disrespect, but keep engaging when it happens, your words mean nothing. Boundaries only work when your actions back them up. When you walk away from drama instead of arguing. When you stop over-investing in someone who gives little in return. When you choose peace of mind over the temporary comfort of holding on to a shaky situation. Many men fear that setting boundaries will push her away. In reality, it does the opposite. Boundaries create clarity, and clarity creates respect. A woman may not always like the limits you set, but she will respect you for having them. And respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. Without it, nothing else matters. Boundaries also protect your self-esteem. They prevent you from giving too much, tolerating too much, and sacrificing your own needs for someone else's moods. When you stand firm, you remind both her and yourself that your time and energy are valuable. That confidence is magnetic, and it often pulls her interest back faster than begging ever could. By setting boundaries she cannot ignore, you shift the entire dynamic. You stop being the man who bends just to keep her, and you become the man she has to rise up to meet. And once that shift happens, her respect and interest grow in ways they never could when you were tolerating everything just to keep the peace. 7. Lead again, don't follow her mood. One of the most common traps men fall into is letting a woman's emotions dictate their own. If she's happy, they feel secure. If she's distant, they panic. If she's upset, they bend over backwards to fix it, even when they did nothing wrong. Over time, this constant adjustment to her moods makes them lose themselves. Instead of being the steady, grounded man she was drawn to, they become reactive, insecure, and unbalanced. If you let a woman's behavior control your emotions, you've already handed over the leadership role in the relationship. And when you give up that role, she won't respect you the same way. Respect is built on strength, consistency, and direction, not on reacting to every shift in how she feels from one day to the next. This is where reflection is necessary. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you let her silence, her mood, or her distance throw you off track? How many times have you dropped your own priorities just to chase reassurance from her? If you find yourself doing this often, it's time to wake up. That behavior doesn't bring her closer. It pushes her further away. Women are not attracted to men who follow their emotions like a shadow. They are drawn to men who stand firm, no matter what. Leading again doesn't mean being controlling. It doesn't mean ignoring her feelings. It means being the stable center she can rely on, instead of being swept away by every wave of emotion that comes and goes. A leader listens, but he doesn't crumble. He considers her feelings, but he doesn't abandon his own standards or values just to keep her happy in the moment. Think about the difference it makes when you set the tone. If you're calm, she feels safe. If you're focused, she respects your drive. If you're clear about your boundaries, she knows where she stands. That's leadership. It's not about domination. It's about direction. The criticism here is simple. Too many men have forgotten how to lead. They've been conditioned to think that keeping a woman happy at all costs is the path to love. But that's not true. Chasing moods creates chaos. Setting direction creates stability. And stability is what allows attraction to grow. So this is your call to action. Stop letting her emotions decide your behavior. Start deciding how you want to live, how you want to lead, and how you want to be treated. When you take that role back, you don't just regain her interest, you regain your own self-respect. And once you have that, everything else begins to fall into place. We've walked through the 7 steps that can completely change the way a woman sees you when her interest starts to fade. And if you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed something important. None of these steps are about chasing her, pleasing her, or begging for her attention. They're about you stepping back into your role as a man, leading, holding your standards, and showing strength in the moments when most men fall apart. Here's something that might sting a little. If you've been chasing, over-explaining, or letting her moods control you, you're the reason she pulled away. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it's also good news. Because if your actions weaken the attraction, your actions can rebuild it too. That means the power is back in your hands. I want you to think about where you've been giving too much and where you've been afraid to pull back. Then make the decision to change it today. Don't wait for her to come around before you step up now, and let her see the difference. Drop your experiences in the comments. I'll be reading them, and I'll engage with you there. Let's build this conversation together.